So, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of the Stormbirds podcast. On this episode, I have with me Jason Williams, who's the lead producer for the IL-2 Great Battles series. Welcome, Jason.
Hi, Colin. How you doing, bud?
I'm good. Excited to talk about past, present, and future of flight sims and the IL-2 series. I've had a lot of questions sent in from the community, so I've tried to kind of put them into something of an order. And let's talk
Sure.
IL-2 Great Battles.
All right, sounds good.
So my first question is actually not specifically IL-2 Great Battles. It's more general. So you've been into flight simulations for a long, long time. Going back to history of flight sims, do you have any that kind of stand out as your favorites, or ones that you just love to play?
Well, I've addressed this in the past. The older I get, the worse my memory gets or becomes. So going back in time 30 years ago, I had a friend in or what we call middle school or junior high, and they had an IBM PC. And the very first flight sim I ever tried was, I believe it was the original F-15 Strike Eagle on an IBM PC. Maybe it was an Amiga. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly, but I just remember the screen was a monochrome orange screen, and we used to spend hours trying to fly this plane at about 2 frames per second in a 2D environment, trying to bomb stuff. So that was my very first recollection, other than playing maybe an Atari game. I remember there was a game for Nintendo. I think it was a Top Gun game that was totally cheesy and not any kind of flight sim. And I also remember I think it was 8th grade or 9th grade, probably 8th grade, my computer science teacher had like the original version of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and those early exposure to these products piqued my interest. Of course, I was big into airplanes as a kid, and was going to join the Air Force when I graduated high school and all kinds of stuff like that. But things didn't always go as planned. But my love of aviation, or at least simulating it on a computer, never faded. The first real simulator that I got to play that I owned was on a 386 computer, and it was a F-117 Nighthawk. And I believe it was in 3D, and it was a lot of fun. You kind of, the whole point was to be stealthy, right, and bomb stuff. That was cool. But that was when I was in community college, so I was probably like 19, 20 years old. I didn't get into flight simming on a regular basis until I got my own Pentium computer, and it was a Pentium 100 megahertz computer. And the first title I really played on a regular basis with any kind of 3D acceleration, well, there was a couple of them, but the one that I played in college a lot, which you can argue wasn't really a sim, but at least it was a combat environment, was the Jane's ATF title.
I remember those.
And it was a lot of fun, and you were just blasting away at shooting missiles at each other. Then there was the U.S. Navy fighters game that was built on the same engine. So I was in college, and I was studying all the time, and then I was playing computer games and any simulation I could get my hands on in that time frame. We're probably talking. This was probably 1994 or 95 through 1997, 98. And I remember my second PC was a Pentium 2, 266 megahertz that I bought at a computer store, paid way too much for it. But that machine allowed me to play things like Longbow and Longbow 2. And I eventually, kept progressing. So back then in the 90s, obviously there was a lot, especially the late 90s, there was a lot of flight sim products being produced. And other titles that I got into as I learned how to build my own computers, and video cards got faster and faster. So the three titles that I played the most, from say 1998 through 2003, were primarily European Air War.
Classic.
Yeah, which I thought was a hell of a lot of fun, and Falcon 4, which back in those days didn't run very well, but it had a lot of interesting stuff and it was super hardcore. And of course, IL-2 Stormbirds, which came out in 2001,
Yep.
or the demo came out in 2000, I believe. So I got into that in a big way, and that title is what led into all this history I have with Stormbirds. But I also played. I remember I worked at a law firm, and I used to just dream about going home and playing my latest flight simulation. So back then, there was, all the Jane's products, right? There was Jane's World War II. There was the Longbow series, of course. There was also F-18E Super Hornet, right? So there was the Super Hornet product. I played a lot of that, and that was the first, I think, sim that kind of first hooked me on multiplayer. So Super Hornet, and then of course I dabbled in Flanker and Lock On as the years went by. But the titles that I spent the most time in were definitely EAW in the late 90s, and then Falcon 4, which was super like hardcore, but it didn't always run that well on your system. Got stutters and low frame rate and things like that. But then when Stormovik came out, a lot of my focus focused on Stormovik. And then once the technology kind of matured, and then when the Track IR product started to, I got involved with that. Then I could actually look around the cockpit like a real pilot. I mean, that was like a drug. I mean, just being able to fly a plane on your computer. Back then it was 2 DOF or 3 DOF, and then eventually 6 DOF. That really added that you finally had all the tools you needed to play a flight sim properly on the computer.
Yeah.
And then I eventually worked for Natural Point and sold the tracker, etc. But being involved in those early days of trying to marry a computer flight sim with head tracking and give you that kind of virtual reality experience, which of course back then was a bit different than the VR we have today, but still it allowed you to really experience flight sims the way they were meant to be. You were in the cockpit as opposed to looking around the sky with a hat switch. So that was, but again, that was a short period of time, right? We're talking maybe the year 2000 to 2005. Just in a few years, the whole hobby changed, and it became a much more immersive experience.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sorry, that was a long answer to a simple question, but I figured I'd just go through it all.
That's great, Jason. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that kind of logically leads into my next question for you, which is, what do you think is kind of the biggest change that's happened in the flight sim industry over, let's say, the last 5 years, maybe 10 years? Is it VR, or is it,
Yeah. I was going to say my answer is primarily VR and graphics for the last 5 years, and for the next 5 years, my answer again is VR and graphics. Yeah. The invention of proper VR goggles has brought flight simming to another level.
Yeah.
However, there are obviously growing pains with the technology. Our video cards aren't fast enough. Our goggles don't have a high enough resolution. Just kind of like, I think we're repeating what we went through 20 years ago, where the graphics got more and more realistic, and then our computers struggled to keep up with the pace of development of the graphic technology. we're kind of in that same situation now with the VR. And even though VR has been around for a few years now, I hope that the next generation of high-powered video cards will finally close the gap between performance on a 2D monitor and the VR goggles. So maybe the 3000 series of GPUs by NVIDIA, or the next AMD stuff with RDNA2 or whatever they got coming out next, will allow us to play flight sims in VR in a much with much better performance, I should say, and and higher resolution. So I'm very hopeful. I love the VR. I think that I get a little tired of wearing the goggles on my face. So I don't play VR all the time. When I do, it's more of a treat. But a lot of times I'm testing Stormbirds or doing some research with it or something. So putting on goggles every time is a bit of a hassle. But as the technology matures and it gets better, I think it'll be a much better experience. But graphics alone have come a long ways in the past few years, not just with us, but with other titles as well. So, and then of course, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 is going to push the boundaries even further with their new way of doing landscapes and scenery and weather. So we'll watch what they're doing. We watch what DCS does. We watch what other people do, and we continue to learn about what technology we can possibly adopt for Stormovik, and we'll see how we can improve things.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. I mean, VR is certainly something that I've been keeping close tabs on. But your point there, where you feel like you're a bit tired of wearing them after a while. I noticed that too. I think the next innovation for VR will hopefully be better performance on the headsets, but also much lighter headsets. I think that'll make a huge difference for us. Lighter headsets, and eventually, I'm sure, I don't know if it's 10, 20, 30, 100 years from now, but eventually you'll probably just be able to put on like a pair of sunglasses, and just boom, you're just in the environment. So I don't know what that'll do for your eyeballs, but it'll probably be pretty bitching. So I don't know what the future holds. I'm not very good at predicting the future per se, but VR is really the space where the most innovation, at least technologically speaking, is happening for gaming in general. But as far as flight sims go, there's always a better way to implement something in the game, like your missions or your storytelling or graphics in general. But it's hard to innovate in flight simming, because especially if you're trying to recreate something from history, history only offers us so much. And because we're not making a shooter or some kind of strategy game or some kind of science fiction game, we're kind of limited to reality. And sometimes both it's a help and a hindrance at the same time to try to recreate history or recreate reality. But there's always ways to make your product more fun and more interesting. But the VR and the graphics improvements we've seen is probably the most obvious way to improve flight simming. Yeah, sounds very cool. Let's jump over to more of the content side of things. So in the last few years, you've been working, the team's been working on Bodenplatte, IL-2 Battle of Bodenplatte, Flying Circus Volume 1, Tank Crew. And so that's a lot of content that you and some third parties have been doing.
Right.
How do you balance sort of all the content with some of the core changes or updates that you're making to the simulation? The AI, the graphics, the damage models, you name it. How do you kind of balance those two?
Not easily, but luckily I have my right hand man, Daniel Tusiev, Han, as you know him on the forums, he's a very good manager, a very good product manager, project manager, and he is able to craft a plan every time we go through this that leverages my goals for the product with the talents and the skill set of our team. And he's very good at creating a schedule for the team that allows us to usually meet our deadlines and meet our technical goals that we set out to accomplish. In a lot of cases, there's just parallel development going on. In the cases of like say airplanes, we have the model team making the tanks, right? And then we have people working on other tasks that aren't necessarily connected to model making, and they can be worked on in parallel. In some cases, like tanks, we have to merge both making the tanks with creating the technology that supports the tanks and creates the gameplay that people hopefully want to play. It's not easy, but I'm blessed with a team of people that are good at managing such workflow. And I think that in the past, at least, there have been other teams and other attempts to make products such as ours, and it didn't go too well. And I think that is primarily because of either a lack of planning, or biting off more than they could chew, or maybe just the team didn't have the skill set to accomplish the goals. We're lucky that we've been doing this a long time, and our core team of people have been together for over a decade. So we know how to organize ourselves to get the work done. But in this case, Flying Circus, Tank Crew, and Bodenplot was a big operation for us, because we were working with third parties, we were working internally. We were not only trying to make Bodenplot, we were also trying to do two new things that we wanted to do. And Flying Circus was a mix of older content that we had from Rise of Flight and mating it with new technology. Then with tanks, with Tank Crew, it was completely new technology working with completely new types of vehicles. So combine that with our usual task, which is Bodenplot. It was a huge amount of work,
For sure.
and it taxed us to the max. And I'm not sure that I want to put the team through that again, because there were some issues that popped up that we probably could have avoided if we didn't have three products working at once. However, I will say that by laying the foundation with Flying Circus and laying the foundation with Tank Crew, I hope, and I've said this many times, even though I'm not able to say for sure what will happen in the future, I hope that we've laid the foundation for further products in the Flying Circus and the Tank Crew lineups. But I don't have anything new to report on that at the moment, but it doesn't mean I'm still not trying to figure out how to accomplish that. But right now we're focused on Normandy, and we continue to make improvements to the engine, and we continue to build new content. And we also continue to add in new items, new technology, new features here and there whenever possible. But again, I give all credit in this regard to Daniel. He's a great project manager.
You always need a good project manager. It makes all the difference, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm more of the guy who has maybe the vision of what the product should be, and trying to understand what the community wants, and then trying to understand the trends that occur when we sell new products. And I try to make sure we don't make any colossal mistakes, and I don't have us invest in a product or a piece of technology that ends up not helping us in the long run. So far, what I've set out to do has been good for us. And I think that because I have such a seasoned team and talented people, we're able to keep going after all these years. Because what flight sim team has been together more than 10 years?
Yeah, I can imagine very few, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, sure, Microsoft made a million editions of Flight Simulator, and of course, X-Plane team has probably been together a long time, and the Eagle Dynamics team has been together a long time. But I don't know what their turnover is. I don't know if it's the same people
Yeah.
that have been working on those projects. So I'm very proud that our team has been together as long as it has been.
Yeah, it's incredible. Let's talk a little more tank crew and flying circus. I'm when you guys came out with IL-2 Battle of Baden-Platte, I think we were all expecting there to be another IL-2 Great Battles installment. I was certainly surprised that you were branching out to do tank crew, to do flying circus. Can you talk a little bit about some of the inspiration for trying a couple of different things and then rolling it all together into one core simulation? I don't think I've seen anything like that except for maybe DCS. So what's the inspiration?
Well, I mean, the inspiration is we have a rather large installed user base from Rise of Flight, right?
Makes sense.
But the engine had progressed to a point where we couldn't go back and work on it anymore. That would be extremely time consuming, and honestly, we're going backwards at that point. There's no way to bring Rise of Flight up to Stormbirds standards in any kind of reasonable time frame. So I know that there were some users who really wanted us to continue to work with World War One content. So the only option I had, if I was going to do anything else in World War One that was reachable or possible, was to make a World War One product with the current Sturmovik engine, but utilize the research and the materials and the content from Rise of Flight and bring it up to the current Sturmovik standard. And luckily, we had a partner that was willing and able to do that, and we accomplished that goal. Now, were we able to rebuild all of Rise of Flight in Sturmovik? No. I had to leave some features on the side because I simply didn't have the manpower or the time to do that. Does it mean I could possibly add them in the future? Yeah, but I'm going to need more time and more manpower. However, I'm very happy that we were able to bring a World War One experience to the current engine. I just hope I can take it further in the future. As far as tank crew is concerned, the previous lead producer, Albert, he put in 2 tanks into the engine, but the tanks were not modeled to a very high fidelity. They were just kind of a fun afterthought where you could drive around with tanks and shoot vehicles. And it was just kind of a peek into the future of what could happen. So when my partners at 1C come to me and say, Jason, what else can we do to find an additional revenue stream or find some new players to play with our games, it was obvious to me that the next logical step was to make an armor sim. And we were in touch with a partner, Digital Forms, that had the talent to make these tanks in a really awesomely detailed iteration.
Oh, they're incredibly
far
detailed.
far beyond what we were able to do with the 2 tanks we launched with. So it was a I use the word experiment, but it really wasn't an experiment, but it was a risk that we took to make tank crew. We're learning from users what they like and what they don't like about it. I'm trying my best to get people to check it out and to play it, and I think it has a lot to offer. Are there areas that we can improve? Of course, and we're doing that. But really, it just comes down to, if you have an engine that's as good as ours, or at least as flexible as ours, and you want to you want to bring some of your old customers into the new engine, and if you want to find some new users who might not have been interested in Sturmovik, but maybe there hasn't been a good armor combat sim in several years, why not give it a shot? Why not put a plan together and make it happen? So we did that. And we have Flying Circus and we have Tank Crew. Tank Crew is not quite completely finished yet, but we're going to finish it, and it will stand on its own as another achievement of our team and our partners. I want to make it as entertaining and as marketable as possible. So we're continue to tweak things, and we continue to build features for it, and I will continue to try to make content for it. But it's definitely a different experience than flying airplanes in our engine. And because of that, some people like it, some people don't. But overall, I think it's a pretty awesome experience. So I will continue to do everything I can to make Tank Crew as good as it can be.
Yeah, it sounds great. And I think, for my part, I had my first Tank Crew multiplayer experience just last week during Stormbirds Fest, and
Right.
it was very cool to be able to be in that scenario where there was aircraft flying above me, engaged in air combat and flying missions, and flying support in some cases, and then I was on the ground,
Right.
Driving a tank and all of that. So it was a cool experience. I've never seen anything kind of like that before. So
Yeah, I've played some Arma, back in the day, Armor 2 and Arma 3, and you have combined arms and Arma, and I always liked that experience. What I didn't like about Arma was just that the aircraft, the helicopters were cool and felt pretty realistic, but the fixed wing aircraft were obviously not up to the same standards as far as fidelity that we have. So I always felt that there's room in the marketplace for something that has realistic armored combat and realistic flight modeling. And when you combine that, could you make a fun experience? And I think we're pretty damn close, if not already, because I just think that I originally envisioned Tank Crew, and the reason we call it Tank Crew is because I originally envisioned it more as a multiplayer game or simulation, and less so about single player. Turns out that most of the people interested in Tank Crew tend to be single player minded people. So I kind of made a mistake there. So that's why we're trying to add things to Tank Crew that makes the single player experience a bit more fun and interesting and entertaining. However, I think there's huge potential for Tank Crew and multiplayer, where you have 4 people in a tank working together and playing against other humans. So we kind of have a big sandbox with our mission editor and our multiplayer environment. So I hope that more people will invest their time in playing multiplayer Tank Crew.
Yeah, absolutely.
But maybe we'll see.
It's an interesting experience, and we got to do that. We had 3 people in one tank at a
Right.
time, and yeah, it can be fun teamwork to play that way. So.
Yeah, exactly. It was all about my vision was for it to be a teamwork oriented experience.
Yeah. So speaking of more on the single player content side, there's 2 campaigns that ship with Tank Crew. Do you have plans to create more campaigns for that? And I think you've already mentioned in a dev update somewhere that there's going to be some included single player campaigns coming for Flying Circus. Anything you can kind of tell us about either of those?
Well, okay. When it comes to Tank Crew single player content, I'm working with some guys in the background to make some more single missions, custom made single missions for Tank Crew. I don't have any additional scripted campaigns in the works, but that doesn't mean that won't happen. But making a quality set of missions and a quality set or quality scripted campaign takes a lot of effort. So I'm definitely working on that. I just don't have anything to announce at this point. Beyond that, I'm working on it. When it comes to single player content for the flight sim side of things, I've actually got a pretty good list here that I can share with you. So, as I mentioned before in a previous dev diary or somewhere else, yes. So I've been working with the guys at Syndicate, and they made a really cool a mini campaign for Flying Circus. Called the Kaiserschlag, and the flip side of that is the Spring Offensive. So I partnered up with them, which I've done in the past, and they have, I should say, expanded both sides of the campaign a little bit further. So in the next update, we're going to be including an 8-mission mini campaign called Kaiserschlag, and then we're also including an 8-mission mini campaign called Spring Offensive. So you fly the Camel in Spring Offensive, and you fly the DR-1 in Kaiserschlag. And they've updated the missions, and they've added a couple additional missions to each campaign. So it'll be free campaigns included with Flying Circus to give you some more single player content.
Great.
And that doesn't mean we can't do more in the future. It's just what I've been able to accomplish at this point in time. Also, on the World War II side of things, we got a lot going on. We got our friend Jägermeister from the community came to me and said, I've been learning how to make missions, and I made this really cool P-38 campaign called Lightning Strikes. And he asked me if we wanted to make it something, not release it generally to the public, but possibly include it in the game. And we've been working with him on completing that task. And so, and I've decided that we're going to include Lightning Strikes with Bodenplot, but of course you need to have the P-38 to fly the campaign. So ideally you should have Battle of Bodenplot Premium Edition or the Standard Edition plus the P-38 to be able to play the campaign. It's a large campaign. It's like 25 missions.
Wow.
And it takes place over the fall and the winter of 1944-45. So it's pretty ambitious, and it's cool. So we're finishing up building the support for that. So that will also be in the next update, free of charge to everybody who has the qualifying content. Then also, our friend Gambit, Jim, is working on his tour de force called Hellhawks Over the Bulge, which is a P-47 campaign. That one will be a payware campaign. He's worked very hard on it, and it includes custom radio calls, and a lot of research has gone into it. So that one will be a payware campaign that gets released hopefully this summer, which is the current plan. Also, Alex Timishkov, who is known as Black Six on the forums, who works for us, he has built a custom IL-2 scripted campaign over Stalingrad that he has finished up or close to finishing, and we will be releasing it this summer as well. That will also be a payware campaign. Alex is also working on a Tempest campaign that will be included in Battle of Bodenplot, and that will obviously feature the Tempest. And then Alex will also build a campaign featuring the Typhoon for Battle of Normandy. In addition to all of that, I'm working with the Syndicate team again to make a set of custom single-player missions for Battle of Bodenplot, which I promised that we would make quite a while ago, and I'm glad that we're finally working on that. So I've leveraged the talent and the motivation of many people in our community, as well as our leading mission maker in house to create quite a bit extra single player content for that will both be free and also some payware. So there's a lot going on in that department.
That sounds incredible, Jason. I mean, yeah, I know there's lots of people who are big fans of multiplayer out there, but there's also some really big fans of the single player experience. So that sounds like an ample amount of content coming in. The sort of near to medium term. That sounds great.
Yeah, no, it's going to be quite a bit, and it takes time to develop these and to get them right. And we're constantly making change. The part of the problem is we're also constantly making changes to the engine. So just because somebody builds a campaign that works with version 4, but then we go and make version 4.5 and something will change and they have to go back and test everything and tweak the mission. So we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes, and development of single player content ends up taking longer than planned. But we have to keep progressing. But luckily we have partners in the community and in the team itself that understand this process and are eager to help us out. So it really is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about Battle of Normandy. You announced that at the end of last year.
Yeah. Yep.
Development is obviously underway. You're also working on 3 new collector planes. I know everybody's excited to get some of the first, the first couple of planes for Battle of Normandy, to get the collector planes. How is it all coming along at this point?
Well, the Hurricane and the Yak-9 and the Yak-9T are well into development, and they're going just fine. The planes are at the point where the Yak-9 is we're working on the flight modeling. The cockpit is basically done. The externals are done. We're trying to finish up the flight modeling and teach the AI how to fly it and all that kind of stuff. The Hurricane ended up being quite a project because we had to basically build it from scratch. And these British cockpits are quite complicated, as you saw with the Tempest. So building the British cockpits take a bit of time, and we had to do quite a bit of research on the Hurricane. But it's also coming along. The person we tasked with modeling it, he's never built a cockpit this complex before. So he's taking his time on it to get it right.
Sure.
Then the Yak-9T is basically a modified version of the Yak-9 that has the cockpit moved backwards towards the rear of the plane, and it has different handling characteristics. So it got that big 40 millimeter gun coming out of the propeller hub. So but again, it's going to plan. So those 3 collector planes will be released either this summer or late summer. Per our plan, no surprises there. And then of course we're also building the planes for Battle of Normandy. The first of which that will be released is the Razorback P-47. Matter of fact, in the developer build, I can see the external model of the plane and I can see it in the air, but there's no cockpit yet. So, and the flight model's not done. But I've seen the plane in the engine. And it looks cool. I've always been a fan of the Jug and the Razorback version of it. So that'll be fun to have. So yeah, everything's going to plan. No big surprises at the moment. So all I can say is, please just have patience as we build them.
Absolutely. Speaking of the 11 aircraft that are coming in Battle of Normandy, 10 of those are, I think, there's 12 aircraft, I think, that are coming in Battle of Normandy. Do I have this right?
Well, we have what do you call it? We have our 10 flyable.
That's right.
And then we have the C-47 coming as an AI plane. And am I forgetting one? Well, we have the V1 buzz bomb. It'll be a flyable object, let's say.
Right.
So
and the B-26.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. I knew I was forgetting one.
Yeah.
The B-26 bomber will be AI as well. So we can have some medium bombers flying around at medium altitude, doing more tactical bombing than as opposed to strategic bombing, which did and didn't happen so much in the Normandy theater. So
Right.
that's why I wanted to build the B-26. Plus, my grandfather was assigned to a B-26 squadron in England during the war, and then it moved to the mainland after Normandy. And my grandpa, he passed away when I was pretty young, but he had a story of him being after the invasion, they had to move the unit to France, and he had to come over, and then the whole squadron and all the maintainers and personnel basically landed in Omaha or Utah or Cherbourg, whichever port they used. That I don't know, but he told a story of him and another guy sitting on the back of a caterpillar of a bulldozer.
Right.
And they were given sidearms and basically said, okay, the unit is going to move to these coordinates in France, and you're going to build an airfield.
Wow.
And then you're gonna land, get operations going. But I wish I would have been able to talk to. I mean, I was like 12, 13 years old when he told me this story. So I wish I could have learned more. And I don't know what squadron he was actually assigned to. I've never been able to determine that. But so I'm partial to the B-26 in that regard.
Right.
That there's a family connection, so that will be cool to add to Normandy. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Normandy. I know people had ideas of us going elsewhere, but I think it'll be really great to have both Normandy and the Boldon Plot period represented in Sturmovik, because then you can fly a pilot career that starts before D-Day and then ends near the end of the war. I think that'd be really cool.
Absolutely. How far back are you planning right now to kind of start your campaign? Like, do you think it'll start, in January 1944 and kind of progress through, or, a little bit later? Or...
I haven't seen the final timeline that Alex is working on. He's very good at dividing up our career into different phases and chapters, and I don't know how far back he's planning on going, but it'll probably go back. Well, let's probably back to the beginning of spring.
Okay.
Maybe February or March. Not. We're not going to go back a year. We're not going to go back 2 years. We're just going to go back to the preparation for the invasion. Right. So flying missions over France, preparing the beachheads, or doing flying missions over the Pas de Calais as a deception. Right. To try to fool the Germans. So we're going to have that period. It's just not going to go back more than a few months.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Of those aircraft that you're planning to release in Battle of Normandy, is there any one that you're really excited to see, or one that is kind of a standout that you're kind of looking forward to seeing being developed by the team?
Well, unfortunately for us Americans, there's three main types, right? We had well, at least at this point in the war, we had the Mustang, the Thunderbolt, and the Lightning. But on the British side of things, there was quite a variety of aircraft. You had Spitfires, you had Typhoons, you had Tempests, you had the Mosquito, you had the Beaufighter. I mean, there were so many cool planes on the British side at this point in the war. So I'm really looking forward to the Mosquito, the Mossy, and the Typhoon. I love the Tempest we built. I think it's a beautiful airplane. I think it's a beautiful cockpit. I did a lot of research on that plane, and as well as the Typhoon. But the Mosquito is fast, and it's a twin-engine fighter. So we're building the fighter bomber version, so you could dogfight with it. You can intercept German bombers. You can bomb targets. You can launch rockets. So it's a very versatile aircraft, and it packs a hell of a punch too, right?
That's right.
So it's great armament. So I'm looking forward to flying Mosquito missions over the beaches or deep into occupied France. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we move on from Normandy, I know the folks out there would kill me if I didn't ask about the B-25, the B-26, the C-47. Any chance that any of those AI types, they could be released in future, releases or as collector planes? I know you've been asked this
Well,
before, but
yeah, I know, and the answer is still I really hope to.
yeah,
The B-25 is a possibility. B-26, a bit more remote possibility. The C-47, because we have the Junkers, I would love to make the Dakota flyable. I still have a possibility of making the Li-2 with Ugra Media. Although we postponed those plans because of some other issues that aren't necessarily related.
right.
But there's still those possibilities. I would love to have the Li-2 and the C-47 in the game as flyable. I would really love to have the B-25 as flyable. Just even though it wasn't a very active plane on the European front, it's just a really cool aircraft. And it's very versatile. And if we ever did go to the Pacific, the B-25 would be right at home.
For sure.
And then the B-26 would be cool. I'm just concerned that it would be both of those, all these planes, but B-25 especially, and the B-26 is a large undertaking because you have to build a big cockpit, you have to build the turrets, you have to build a large, probably a lot of the internal structure of the plane. Our B-25 AI model looks fantastic.
It does.
So I can only imagine how great a cockpit would be. I'm just saying that these are possibilities. I'm still trying to figure out how to accomplish these items. Clearly, I would have to expand the team to get the work done or use an outside contractor. It's always easier said than done. So I'm not going to say never on these planes. I don't have anything to announce at this point.
For sure. Well, yeah.
But I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get those done, or at least one of them done, or a couple of them.
They'd be very exciting, and like I said, I know lots of people out there are interested. So it's just the challenge of resources, right? Like,
well, yeah, and I just want to remind everybody that I've really tried recently, especially during the COVID crisis, to make Sturmovik as affordable as possible.
Right.
If everybody who bought Stalingrad would buy any of our follow-up products, even if it's on sale, we would have plenty of money to build everything we want to build. But not everybody buys our products at the same time.
Right.
They buy one or two titles here, and then they buy one or two titles at a later date. Because I mean, times are tough, and not everybody has a ton of money. But if you have the means, and if you want to see some of these additional aircraft purchased, we basically are self-funded. So I don't have a large pot of money sitting around at 1C that I can grab and say, I'm going to hire 3 or 4 modelers to make these planes. So, but a long-term support by the community by buying as many of our products as possible gives us that funding that will allow me to expand the team and build some of these more ambitious bombers and stuff that we want to make. But our community's great. I'm not knocking the community. You guys support us. We've been around for a long time. We'll be around for many more years. It's just it'd be cool if everybody bought everything on day one. my worries would go away. But anyways, so again, if you like our products and you want to see us make more, just please keep purchasing as much as you can.
For sure. There you go.
And I'll do my best to make them.
There we go. Let's talk a little bit about AI. You've hired someone semi recently in the last several months, I think it is, to do some AI work.
Yeah, we hired a guy named Nurbreck who's our full-time AI programmer. He's still learning, and he's making progress in various areas of the AI. But AI is a complicated mix.
That's a tricky one.
It's tricky because there's different layers to it. There's limitations, and we want to build limitations into the AI, and that's tricky as well. But also, there's AI who thinks independently and flies the planes and does certain things, but then it's also connected to the mission logic. And I see complaints about our AI that says, well, your AI isn't doing what it's supposed to do. Well, how did you design the mission, right? So there's all kinds of interconnected dependencies between the AI brain and the mission logic, and sometimes making it all come together so the AI behaves in a humanistic fashion is not so easy. But we continue to improve the AI, whether it's teaching them to fly better formations or to attack targets in a more realistic manner or a more effective manner, or it's training the AI to miss. Like
Right.
the AI can't be Supermen, right? We could make them Supermen very easily. The trick is not making them Supermen. So it's tricky, but we've made strides in AI, and we'll continue to do so. As long as Nurbrak has the motivation and he continues to learn how to better make the AI. So, but I'm happy that we have somebody working on AI. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Let's talk about another feature, Air Marshal. This is something you brought up a long time ago,
Yeah.
and
This
it's been a challenge. How's that coming along? Can you tell us anything new about that?
Well, the news I have is that it looks like, and again, don't hold me to this, but it looks like we're reaching the end of the development cycle for Air Marshal, and we can go to testing soon. The person that was building Air Marshal was our lead GUI programmer, because the Air Marshal includes a lot of GUI changes and logic and improvements, and he's been working on that for quite a while. And my original plan for Air Marshal was interesting, but this person, Vitaly, is taking it to another level. So I told him, if you can build this, I want this. So can you build it? And he said yes, and he's been working on it. Turns out that it's been a bit more difficult than originally planned, and he's been working with the team for a long time and working on these projects for a long time. And after he finishes Air Marshal, he's going to leave the team to pursue some other interest. So it's I'm trying not to rush him. I'm trying not to try to make mistakes or go down directions that he doesn't want to go down, because I know his time with the team is limited. Now, we've hired another GUI programmer who is also working with his name is Vitaly as well. So I've got two Vitalys, the new Vitaly and the old Vitaly, and the old Vitaly is training the new Vitaly, and old Vitaly is trying to finish Air Marshal and make the vision happen. So we're going to be checking with him at the end of this week to find out when we might be able to get Air Marshal into proper testing. We already had it tested a little bit, but we found bugs and we found some things we needed to change or fix. So it's progressing. Because it was a completely new feature that we ended up making more robust than the original idea. The timeline for this has been spread out much longer than planned, but I'm hoping that if it works as planned, and that if it does work as planned, I think it's going to be a really cool feature that multiplayer servers can use to great effect to help manage the combat environment and to give multiplayer users more direction, so multiplayer servers become more interesting. So that's the goal.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting. I know you guys have, I think, probably been intentionally vague a little bit about some of the features.
Well,
Is that because you're in development, or are you hoping to kind of make a bit of a splash when you do?
No,
release it?
it's primarily because it's in development and it's such a new feature that if something doesn't work well, I'm going to have to remove it from the feature.
Right.
So I don't want to promise anything I can't deliver. And I don't want to make any grand statements as that Air Marshal is going to include all these great tools or all this great features if it doesn't happen, because then I'll just look like a fool. And I can do that without making promises. So why bother with that? So I hope that we reach our goals internally and Air Marshal works as planned. Once I know that Air Marshal works in a certain way and what features will be included, then of course I will explain it to everybody in a developer diary or in some other video or something, and show everybody what it includes. But if it includes everything we think it will, there's some tools in there that are very good for multiplayer or single player environment. Then there's also ways of organizing multiplayer pilots into different squads and issuing orders and information being visible to the Air Marshal to help organize the battle space. There's detection rules for how enemy planes might be detected in the multiplayer environment, and that information can be relayed to users on the server on your side, not the enemy side, of course.
Right,
So
of course.
I'm hoping that it's going to again, and again, it's a completely optional feature.
Sure.
But I'm hoping to invent a new type of player with our simulation. There's obviously pilots and tank drivers and tank gunners and rear gunners. So you could play Stormbirds as a pilot, as a gunner, as a tank driver or a tank gunner or a tank commander. I'm hoping that there will be a new type of player who just specializes in being an Air Marshal.
Interesting.
And controlling the battle space, and especially in some of our products like Bold and Plot, where the Allied planes are just about as good as the German planes. So if you have kind of an evenly matched side of players, right, as far as technology is concerned, so late war German planes are about as good as late war Allied planes and vice versa. What could possibly be the deciding factor on a server? Maybe it's a good Air Marshal.
Right.
And maybe that Air Marshal can coordinate his pilots in a way that is more effective than the other side. So to me, that seemed really interesting, because I know a lot of people in our community are veterans who are used to, using radio discipline to accomplish the mission. I know there's air traffic controllers who play our game, or I keep saying game, but simulation. I hate to split that hair, but okay. So,
sure.
But it would be interesting to see some of these professional people who play Sturmovik, see if they would be an effective Air Marshal, and see if the system that we've built can be utilized to turn the tide of war on a server.
Sounds exciting, Jason. I'm looking forward to seeing it in action.
I am too. Let's just hope everything works.
Sure. All right, let's change gears just a little bit.
Okay.
Team Fusion, Cliffs of Dover, TFS 5.0, and their North Africa. You're involved in some way in that, and let's talk a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, I can give you a little preview of what they're working on. I'm not going to reveal anything. That's their baby, and that's what their job is. But no, I was primarily a facilitator or a tangential producer of the product. But all of the hard work and all of the design and everything that they've done is from Team Fusion. Like I said, I was primarily a facilitator that championed this idea of giving them the opportunity to work with the Cliffs of Dover engine and to take a lot of the hard work that they did as a mod team and turn it into a commercial product. And they've spent the last few years working on that goal. And it should be mentioned that this team is primarily a part-time team. They all have day jobs, and then they work on Dover, in their spare time or on the weekends or at night when they're not doing their day job. So they've put in a tremendous amount of work. It probably hasn't gone as fast as everybody hoped because they are a part-time team. That doesn't mean they're not professional-minded people. I know some of the people on the team already work in the gaming sphere, and they're professional modelers or etc. So I know that they have good people on the team, and they've been working their butts off trying to finish it. But I'm not the one in charge of the day-to-day development, nor do I want to be. I've as the representative from 1C that has worked directly with their team. I stayed out of their way and let them make their own vision and produce the content and the features that they wanted to do. So I'm not. I'm just trying to be the facilitator to help get them from being a mod team and signing a professional contract and getting it out the door. And I just try to help them along the way and give them advice where necessary. And you can follow their progress on their Facebook and in our forum. And you can see the videos they've been putting out, and they've tried to take all of the best features of Cliffs of Dover and add them into their North Africa product. And I think they've accomplished that. And they also have plans to enhance the product in other ways, which I can't reveal. That's up to them. But what I've seen so far and what I've played is a lot of fun. And we can't, the Great Battles team can't possibly be everywhere in World War II. So giving them this opportunity to make a North Africa product was a great opportunity, and I'm proud that it's happened and that it will get released. So it's coming. I don't have a totally firm release date to announce, and again, that's something that's not my responsibility, nor I want to spoil any surprises. So I'll leave that up to Team Fusion and to 1C to announce that information. But I'm very happy with what they've been able to produce, and it'll be a heck of a lot of fun. And it'll be over a different environment in the desert, which we're not typically used to flying over, and it's got a lot of cool airplanes, and it's got cool ships, and it's got the work they've done is very impressive. So I'm looking forward to Team Fusion's North Africa product being announced, released, and supported moving forward.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
Should be fun. I must say too, that anybody listening to this, please, when we offer it for sale, and if you're at all interested in this theater or the aircraft that they've produced, please support it by making a purchase, because Team Fusion has put a ton of time and sweat into making this product, and I would like nothing more than to see them have a success with North Africa and be able to make additional products. I really do. I really want them to have success with this. So if you're interested at all in what they're doing, please get behind them and let's push them. Let's push them into the future.
Sounds great. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right. Let's end on. I've got one last question. Again, I know this is something that the community, wants me to ask about. You've talked in the past about, going to a Pacific theater of war at some point. You've talked about how you've had some struggles with the research. How is that looking at this point in 2020? I imagine research for the Japanese planes is still probably a huge challenge. How is that looking at this point? Is still down the road, hopefully?
Yeah, I still hope to get to the Pacific at some point. The challenges remain to making Japanese planes. The research continues. The challenge is just still there. To make the Pacific, we're going to need a pretty large budget, because we also have to, build the ships.
For sure.
I'm looking at every option possible with doing the Battle of Midway like I originally wanted to do, which I'm a big fan of. The movie that got released recently sucked, but I still love the battle itself, and all of the battle itself is amazing. There's also other options that people have suggested, doing Guadalcanal or doing Okinawa or doing the Philippines or doing China Burma. There's a million things we could possibly do that's Pacific, but when I think of the Pacific of carrier battles and launching and landing on a carrier and torpedo attacks and all that kind of stuff. So I still hope to get it done. I'm still doing my homework. I'm still working with people who might help me do research and get the information we need. 1C and the president of 1C is a fan of the Pacific, so it's not like somebody's telling me not to do the Pacific. This is my call to make, and if I make the call that we're going to the Pacific like I originally planned, then I have to make sure that we can accomplish the goal. So whatever we decide to do, it's going to be a challenge. That might mean that we make a product that's Pacific themed, that doesn't have as many flyable aircraft, perhaps. It might mean that we don't make we don't produce as many flyable aircraft out of the box. It means we might have to make concessions to the level of detail that's included in each aircraft that we make flyable. Or it means that we have to make educated guesses about certain details of Japanese aircraft because of a lack of references. And I'm just not sure that the community would support such compromises to get to the Pacific, right? So let's say I make the Val dive bomber, and I know what the instrument panel looked like, and I have a general idea of what the cockpit looked like. But the rear gunner position, do I know exactly what was included in the rear gunner position? Now, I can make some educated guesses that it included, obviously, the gun, but did it include a radio? Did it include how many magazines of ammo did it include? There's all kinds of information that is not easy to come by sometimes when it comes to Japanese aircraft. Right. And I've had people in Japan do some research for me and try to get their hands on various bits of information or manuals or drawings or what have you, or museum pieces. And what's come back is very scant, and it's not necessarily super useful to actually building the aircraft.
Right.
So it's just been difficult, and because the bar is set so high when it comes to the accuracy of our models that we currently have, and the accuracy of what other teams have done or are doing in the genre. If I make something that doesn't seem to reach that level, we're gonna be faced with criticism that could possibly hurt sales, which obviously means that particular product might be not make us money or be a failure. So whenever we go to the Pacific, I got to make sure that we have a plan that I know we can implement. And right now, at least when I announced Normandy, I didn't have confidence that we could make a Pacific product that would reach that level. But I have 2 years approximately to make Normandy. So in that period, 2-year period, I'm going to try my best to come up with a plan for the Pacific and hopefully be able to implement it in a future product. So I keep trying. And if I can't make the Pacific, well, come up with some other cool product, But I still hope to go to the Pacific. I think that would be great for the series. And it could possibly even start a separate series of products based on the Pacific.
Right.
It may not be attached to the current Great Battles series of products, simply because we have one engine or one core product that powers all of these additional titles, and sometimes it gets too big, it gets too bloated, and there might be some technology changes that we make when we go to the Pacific. Maybe the Pacific is powered by DX12 or Vulcan or something, and we're not able to take the time to go retrofit great battles with that technology. But who knows? There's all kinds of possibilities here. So I'm still trying to work that out and see what's possible when we go to the Pacific.
Sounds good, Jason.
But it's still top of my mind. I haven't given up on it. It's still a dream that I want to make happen. But I'm trying.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's certainly has captured the attention of a lot of people, as I'm sure you know. And so, hey, it's just good to know how you're doing.
When I announced our plans to get there, I believe strongly in the power of positive thinking, whether anybody wants to believe that or not. But when I took over the product line, I really strongly wanted to put our flag in the dirt and say, we're going to go here, hell or high water, we're going to make it happen. And sometimes life and reality, and you have to be a pragmatist, and you have to make decisions that may not get you right to where you want to go as fast as possible, but it puts you on the path to eventually get there. And that's what I was forced to do, is say, I'm going to take a path that will eventually get me to the Pacific. I just can't do it next. So that's the path we're on, is to eventually get to that goal.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I guess I said that was the last question. I guess my last question is there anything else that we've anything that we haven't covered yet? I think we covered quite a lot. Single player, multiplayer.
Yeah, I hope this wasn't too boring for people that were listening. I can go on and on, but I just want to say, Colin, listen, it's sad what has happened to any media that covers these types of products. And I've told you this in private many times. The magazines that used to exist, the magazines that currently exist, the websites that used to exist, and the websites that have disappeared, or the websites that currently exist. I have not seen anyone cover this hobby and to make such thoughtful and reasonable articles about what's happening in this genre than you. And I think that it's a shame that the other periodicals and other folks out there that write about our hobby don't take a cue from what you're doing or hire you to write for them, because you've covered what's happening with our product and other products in a very fair and measured, and you take your time to do your homework, and you write very good articles. So I want to thank you for taking the time to cover Sturmovik and do it in a fair and balanced way, and to actually give a rip about what's happening in this space. And I don't want to shit on too many other websites or magazines, but what you're doing is great, and I hope that you continue to find the energy and the motivation to continue to do it. And I want to thank you for organizing and producing the Sturmovik Fest, the week of multiplayer events that just happened. I only regret that I wasn't able to participate in more of them, but I want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody that was involved with that effort, and I want to thank all the server operators and all the participants for focusing and shining a light on the multiplayer environment that we have with Sturmovik. Multiplayer is, it's a difficult space to make everybody happy. But I was very much encouraged and happy to see the events that were put on. And I just want to thank you and everybody involved in Sturmovik Fest, and that I hope we can do it again next year and make it even better.
Well, thank you, Jason, on both parts. And on that note, I will also say thanks, because I put the idea out, and frankly, I wasn't sure whether and I've said this on the blog, and I'll say this here, you know, I wasn't sure whether people would take the idea and run with it, or whether it would kind of fall flat, but people ran with it. There were custom skins. There were people, you know, approaching me saying, "Hey, I want to do giveaways. Hey, I've got this this channel, and I'm streaming, you know, Sturmovik stuff." And the server operators who all stepped up. Yeah, it was fantastic. So. Oh, and I should say too, you know, Combat Box, they started their Project R air racing in IL-2, which is fantastic. And
yep.
Jim TM on the forums, he did the mass formation event, two of them, fantastic organization there. So community for this series is just incredibly strong. So.
Yeah, and it's a blessing to have everybody that's so enthusiastic about Stormbirds, and we've been working hard on it the last few years. So it's good to see our multiplayer numbers improve and more people involved in multiplayer and more servers getting stood up. And you can make a co-op mission with Pat Wilson's campaign generator now. You can fly in a co-op campaign. You can download and fly or produce co-op missions with Vander's easy mission generator. Just the community itself has produced tools that make multiplayer even more interesting than just using, our tools. So God bless everybody who's put in the time to improve the Sturmovik multiplayer environment and host servers and participants. And I was embarrassed because I flew on a multiplayer mission recently, and I was so out of practice in flying multiplayer because I'm so focused on flying, looking for bugs or testing things or, interacting with the team. And sometimes I forget what it's like to go and just join a server and fly a multiplayer mission with your buddies. And it was super enjoyable, even though I completely fell apart and overheated my plane and got shot down and just was not leading by example, let's put it that way. But again, thank you again for putting on the events, and it was a lot of fun. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And the team appreciates it, not just me.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And so thank you, Jason.
You bet, buddy.
Let's end it on a great note like that. So thank you, Jason, for taking part. Thank you for answering all the questions, and we look forward to the future.
You got it. Thanks a lot, Colin. I appreciate it. And everybody go to stormbirds.blog and read up, because you do a great job of summarizing everything that we talk about, and it's into an easy to read format as opposed to searching our website or forum for information. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. We'll end it on that note. Have a good night, everybody.
You got it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.